Good evening. Current time midnight UTC, 1 AM here in the UK, and across the pond on the US East Coast the time has ticked on to 8 o'clock. My name's Nathan Foy, joined by the Skype team this hour, consisting of Hank, Tropical Storm Nuke, as he's like to be known, and Strat. And same voices who you were hearing at the end of the last hour, so yay for continuity. Here's the storm making landfall right in front of you on radar. Hello.
Hello again.
Yeah, Hank's here, but he's a ghost for a little while.
Ah.
Yeah.
The ghost of Hank.
Yeah.
So, the National Hurricane Center is saying that the storm is in the process of making landfall. I wouldn't call it an actual landfall yet, but it is doing it. And I'd say within the next hour, you would expect that it has made landfall in Cuba. Regardless, you can see extremely heavy rainfall on the southern side of the storm and in various areas off to the northwest over Cuba right now. And it's going to get worse.
Yeah. It's quite fortunate to say that right now that rain is staying offshore of both nations, although radar gets a bit iffy when we get closer to Haiti. It does look like there's a bit of heavy bands moving into the northern peninsula.
Definitely
but at least
hit Haiti.
Yeah, at least for Cuba right now, the heaviest rains are either just creeping onshore or staying offshore for the most part. And as the problem's been with this system throughout its interaction with land and approaching, and in terms of damage, it is a slow moving system, so it'll probably be at least another 1 to 2 hours before the start of the eye starts to really emerge off of the other side of this little end of tip of Cuba as well.
So let's go on to the latest. I want to read out the latest National Hurricane Center's update in its entirety for those who are unfamiliar with it. At 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, that's now, the storm was located at 20.1 degrees north, 74.3 west, that's 15 miles southwest of the eastern tip of Cuba, and 55 miles east-northeast of Guantanamo, Cuba, with winds of 140 miles per hour and 949 millibars. Storm moving north at 9 miles per hour, and that is ever so slightly less than it was earlier. So the warnings, importantly. A hurricane warning remains in effect for Haiti, the Cuban provinces of Guantanamo, Santiago de Cuba, Holguin, Granma, and Las Tunas. All of the Bahamas are under hurricane warning. A hurricane watch on the Cuban province of Camagüey, the Golden Beach, sorry, not the Golden Beach, but Golden Beach, to the Volusia-Bedford County line and Lake Okeechobee. Sorry?
I'm gonna go. Hey!
Oh. And a tropical storm warning is in effect for the Dominican Republic from Barahona westward to the border with Haiti and for the Turks and Caicos Islands. A tropical storm watch is in effect for the Dominican Republic from Puerto Plata westward to the border with Haiti and for 7 Mile Bridge to the south of Golden Beach. Interests elsewhere in the Florida Peninsula and the Keys should monitor the progress of Matthew. And the radar data from Guantanamo, along with reports from the Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft, indicate that the eye of Hurricane Matthew was located near that position that I said, 20.1 north, 74.3 west, and it is making landfall at this time.
Yep, and we can see the very northern part of the actual eye, not just the eye wall, starting to come over land in the last few radar frames.
Yeah, I have to say, the NHC just confirmed there right now that the center of the eye has made landfall. I'm not seeing it on radar, but it is up to date, so I'm not sure.
Well, they do have a little bit earlier images than us, I would assume. Something I noticed with the update, they still have it moving.
Yeah, this image is only 6 minutes old.
Oh, well, maybe it got. I don't know. Maybe they're talking about the area where the lowest pressure is in particular that they measured.
Who knows?
So
it's
I noticed something.
Anyway.
Yeah, with the update, I noticed they still put it at north at 9 miles an hour. But if we look at the visible radar imagery, it's the storm's still moving just a bit east of north. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at any potential forecast track that isn't exactly moving north right now. And if this keeps up, forecast tracks are really going to start moving east a bit. Not necessarily a lot, but like, if you look at the 3-day forecast says it's going to, like, start turning like west or northwest right now, really. Even the next dot, so where they want it to be like 11 p.m. is west of its current tracking in general. So that's definitely something to keep a watch on.
Yeah, indeed. So we're watching its progress, and it's just about to make landfall. It is making landfall, and Cuba is now gripped by the hurricane. Just to talk, that's Lee in the background. Just to talk about the situation in Kansas, the tornado warning that was in effect is expired 5 minutes ago, and there are no tornado warnings in effect. The watches are still in effect for central Oklahoma, Kansas, eastern Kansas, and southeastern Nebraska. Lee, good evening.
Good evening, Nathan.
Our second Scott on the show, and
yeah, I've just been watching tonight up till now, and I have to say it's been a pretty good stream. I have to say.
Yeah, we're doing the best we can right here, and
yeah. I've actually talked to David beforehand, but yeah, I've heard it's a sick Cuba, I believe.
It's literally doing it as we speak. Yes.
Yeah. I will say they did measure on recon the minimum air pressure right before landfall is 949, and right now they're going out to check the radius and diameter of the wind field itself, it seems, and drop some other drop zones to get some more data. We also have a drop zoned upper level plane that's already been around the complete radius, or like circular, of Matthews, heading back up into the Gulf, dropping a couple more, and probably gonna head back in soon.
Yeah, gotta say, just looking back at the models again, most of the models, a majority, still keeps the storm offshore all the way to at least the Outer Banks, and actually, then the consensus is out the window. But up until 3 days, this is still too close to call whether it can hit Florida or whether it will move out to sea. I know
As a tricky one, Dave.
we've got two kinds of people, I think, on the stream. One is people who want the storm to hit Florida and is going crazy over it, and the others who are extremely scared about it and shouldn't be just yet, but should be thinking about what their plans are going to be if things are going to turn out bad. Again, we're still around 24 hours until we will know any better, to the point where we should say that people should put plans into action. We can't tell people to put plans into action yet in Florida, and people talking about evacuating already. It could be a wasted journey. Until we can be more conclusive about it. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a bit, of a jumping a gun of South Carolina already ordering the evacuation of 1.1 million people, but at least they're trying to keep people safe. I also saw the chat from Sparrow asking, my brother, who has to be called Sharky, wants to know how the scientists choose hurricane names and what happens if they use up all the names for that year in particular. At least I can say, for naming at least, I'm not completely sure how they actually choose the regular names, but if you actually go over, and you go over the maximum, that's what happened in 2005, they actually go onto the Greek alphabet. So you have alpha, beta, and etc.
Ben Becker says, have any members of Force 13 been through a hurricane? I'll ask you guys the question.
You want to go first, Lee?
We've got plenty of members. There's only 4 of us here, and there's, 16 or 17 total.
Has any of us been through a hurricane?
Well, I could tell you right now, the answer's no. I've never been through a hurricane.
Yeah, well, me personally, when I was very young, I was through Hurricane Bob, and then More recently, Irene and Sandy were storms that I've been through.
Yeah, I'm sure Hank's experienced one or two over in Texas.
Yeah.
I haven't really until this year when I caught the very, very edge of Hurricane Earl in Mexico, and it was really disappointing, to be honest, and we had a squall line come in the next day that was 5 times worse. So there you go. Sometimes things don't go to plan. But that was the very, very edge of Hurricane Earl, and by no means am I saying that all hurricanes are like that, because Hurricane Earl was much worse near the center, and I was 300 miles away. It makes all the difference.
I also saw static codes asking where's the best place for computer models, as I can't find any. The place I like to use the most, I think, is really the place we all use. It's got tons of data. TropicalTidbits.com this place is pretty amazing. I'll try one last shot at screen sharing to see if I can get anything up. Anything visible at all. Any site on the screen share?
Oh no,
just a
sorry,
dud?
I forgot you were asking. Oh yes, there's something.
There's something.
Oh, okay,
Is that you?
finally. Yeah,
It is indeed. Oh wow, wonderful. How about it?
I just had to turn the volume on my computer up to 2 and then mute on the Skype because I'm using a different device for the actual call.
Okay,
So,
that sounds
there we go.
complicated.
Just to show the true spread. A lot of people are saying. You said earlier there's 2 types of people. One that want it to hit, one that don't. It's basically cherry picking, and it's political work with a lot of these people are trying to pick out the ones that they want to hit them in particular. Here's the 18Z one. I know earlier we were showing the 12Z, but as you can tell, I mean, I'll zoom in on it a little bit. As soon as you get past the 24-hour mark, there's already a lot of uncertainty by the 2-day mark, which is
Yeah. I was
pretty
looking
odd.
at a similar graphic showing exactly that when I was explaining it earlier, but it's good to have it illustrated.
And the BAMs is still pretty crazy. You go 2 days out, it already ranges from directly north of central Cuba all the way out to northeast a good chunk from Nassau. And by the time you get to 3 days, you have 2 models that show it trying to emerge over the very northeast corner of the Gulf of Mexico by Tampa, all the way out to God knows where with the BAM in particular. But I mean that's still a big cluster in here in particular that kind of tries to keep it slow. And just for people that are talking about more of further East Coast impacts, up down the line, that's really nothing to talk about because currently the 5-day spreads all the way from Maine down to here. So it's too far out to say for certain. We should really, for now at least, be focused on the very short term, which is the end of the Haiti impacts and really seeing what the storm has left in its wake there and up into the Bahamas and southern Florida at this point. Also, I noticed while I was passing it, what we used to call our friendly clouds actually starting to look a bit more
Can you
organized.
just confirm it's 8:15 there right now, is that right?
On the East Coast, yes, it's 8:15 right now. I noticed I was just passing over, and Nicole is actually looking quite a bit better in the most recent frames, actually trying to get some convection around it. But, it's something I doubt we'll really get anywhere just because it's going straight into Matthew. It's going to get sheared to bits, really. But in other visible news, here's Matthew on the visible satellite right now. I just want to see if there's any new frames in particular.
Yeah, it's getting dark now, isn't it, nearly?
Yeah, so you're starting to see the night shades come over. That's just so you can still see it. Sometimes with visible, they only show the day, so as soon as it gets night, you can't see anything.
That's right.
Unfortunately, the night, it's a little harder to tell certain things, with how strong convection is in certain areas and stuff, especially near the eye. But regardless, you can tell that it's actually been moving a bit north of east, or east of north, instead of just due north like the Hurricane Center's been saying. And that's something to keep an eye on, because it's actually doing that down south of Haiti as well. And then the only time it really made a west jog was when it made landfall and kind of just, came out a little over here. Since then, it's kind of been keeping its path up. So, something to keep an eye on. Are there any questions right now? Here, I can stop screen share for now. I want to see if there's any questions in the chat.
Oh, Orlando has joined us.
Oh, welcome,
Hello.
Orlando. Ironically, you're
Hello.
not in Orlando.
But most of our viewers are.
Yeah. Something
Yeah.
I'd also like to mention quickly. I saw someone said like 190 miles an hour recon. No, that's probably like way, way further up in the air, I would assume. I
You'd
know, was it
assume, but
last
you might
night?
want to go and confirm
Yeah.
that.
I know last night, what was it, like 250 meters in the air, they were measuring 195 mile an hour sustained winds with one of the drop zones. So when hearing that, that was before it made landfall in Haiti. Remember that a lot of people in Haiti live up in the mountains, so they were probably experiencing significantly stronger winds than what was going on the surface, which is 145 at landfall for them.
Yeah, that's right.
You see, I know some people are saying like 165 knots and stuff. It's not 165 knots. I'm gonna double check it quickly. I'm pretty sure it's like 120 knots, if I'm not mistaken. 140 miles an hour. So I'm not the best with that kind of conversion math.
Sorry, run that by me again.
Some people are saying, in the chat, 165 knots. It's not 165 knots. It's 140 mile an hour sustained. If I'm doing my math right, that's around 120 knots.
140 miles an hour, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, nowhere near 165 knots. If it were, things would be a lot worse right now.
Oh, yeah. It certainly would.
Someone asked,
Go on.
what's the conversion of 1 knot to a mile per hour? I'm pretty sure 1 knot is like 1.15 miles, if I'm not mistaken. I
Exactly.
can double check that.
It is 1.15.
Okay.
And that's how it's calculated. That is the reason why you never see an advisory come out with winds of 135 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour, because the knots to mile an hour conversion, 50 knots is 60 miles an hour, and 55 knots is 60, sorry, where did I get it wrong? 45 knots is 50 miles an hour, and 50 knots is 60 miles an hour. Misses out the 55.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you never see those things happen. Little technicalities there with the bulletins. They've always used knots, though. They never use miles an hour. Their default is knots, not miles per hour.
Yeah. And since, things are a bit quiet right now, do you want to try to check out Chaba, see how it's doing as it's moving in towards Korea?
Not too much to say about
I
Chaba.
believe
It's
it's-
going.
Yeah, I mean,
it's extremely shared as well.
Sorry?
It's extremely shared.
Yes.
I know that for sure.
Yeah. It's,
Destroyed.
as we said earlier, it's under 60 knots of wind shear, which in perspective is almost the actual strength of the storm. So this thing's going to get absolutely shredded and ripped apart, not to mention land interaction as well. But definitely a weakening storm. It's at least, for the people that love, how amazing these things look at their peaks, it's sad to see Chaba like this after, 24 hours ago, how it was looking.
Yeah, so quickly to weaken. So substantially.
Let's see. And Sister asked, if a hurricane loses its eye but still rotates, is it still a hurricane?
Under certain circumstances.
Because you could still have a storm that's still spinning and stuff that's a tropical cyclone that loses its, any visible eye or something, but is still a hurricane, at least as long as it has, a low-level closed circulation. Otherwise, it's not really anything that's gonna count. It'd be just a very weird, long storm, I guess, if it were just not anything tropical.
Alright. Well, the radar keeps
Florida,
showing
what about
the eye drawing nearer, the southern part of the eye wall drawing nearer. I wonder whether, yeah, you can sort of see that little curl of rain there. It's probably the very centre of the storm now, that's inland by about a mile or two, maybe 3. So
Yeah, it definitely looks like it.
you can see that going in there now, and the other half of the storm on its way. That's a landfall, and gee.
Yeah.
When was the last
I
time you
know.
saw a Category 4 landfall in that area? Probably Ike.
I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if it's just because it's getting closer to the radar, but it looks like as the eye moves in, you're seeing a lot more like stronger rains and stuff with the southern eye wall. Just with this map, it's harder to tell if it's just because it's coming into
Strange,
radar
yeah.
view, but
Strange.
it could also be actual convection increases. I guess that's something I'll try to find out right now, actually.
Well, that's where satellite probably helps a little bit.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Infrared should be pretty helpful with that.
My favourite's the RB
let's
top.
see. It moves in. It does look like it. Here I can screen share this again. It does look like it's actually trying to build some convection back, particularly on the southern side. Here it is. This is actually the very start. This is after it came off of Haiti.
Oh yes.
Convection had decreased and stuff, like significantly. But you see, it's trying to build it back pretty quickly. Oh, who is this?
That's John.
Oh, welcome.
Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Hello, John.
Hi.
But
I'm here
As I was
right
saying-
now.
Indeed, you are.
Yep, you sure.
Latest NEC
as a-
5-day track has New England in the track. That
don't even
not
mention that. Don't
surprising.
even
Oh,
mention
that.
John's
Then again,
first
it's too far
headline.
But
Go on.
regardless, don't trust the 5-day track because frankly, it's gonna probably shift out this year, shift in again, it one or two times. I mean, this is October, folks. You don't trust a 5-day
Yeah.
track.
I think we're really
You don't
we
trust the
purposely
3-day
only been
track.
showing the 3-day.
Ooh, 3-day. I mean, the 3-day track is relatively accurate. I said relatively. I'm surprised that Matthew hasn't really lost much strength, more or less. Through his passage.
That's actually something that really surprised me because not only was it a pretty high pressure at its peak for something as strong as it was at 940, even though it lost a lot of convection and its pressure went up, it only lost a very little bit of strength as well, which is pretty odd, really.
Antoine
might have-
Jenkins says, why is it called Hurricane Matthew? I don't know. Ask the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization that sets up all the names.
I mean, all I really
There's
know
a
about
thing
names
called
is
a
that,
naming list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, they do it alphabetically. They have A, B, C, D, and throughout the alphabet. If they get past, I think, W or Y, they go to the Greek alphabet. And they go alpha, beta, etc., etc.
Of course,
But,
They did
Matthew
that every year.
replaced a retired name, and that name was Mitch.
Yes, because there's a 6-year cycle, and every 6 years a name will be reused unless it's retired. In cases like, I'll just gonna say Sandy because that's the first one that
And
pops in my head.
by the way, that this storm replaced the name Mitch, and Mitch was retired because it was a Category 5 in the Caribbean and tracked slowly over one of these countries, Honduras, and killed 19,000 people.
The radar
And,
view is beautiful.
I hope before
Yeah.
that fatality count is where the similarities end, because here's another Category 5 as it once was, moving slowly through these Caribbean countries.
And
in
as
October.
people have said, as authorities have said, they currently say the death toll in Haiti is 2. It's probably much, much higher than that, and not just that, but I know also a crucial bridge that connects the capital of Haiti out to the Tiburon Peninsula, which is the southern peninsula of Haiti, was actually completely broken apart by the storm. So anyone that really needs help, that becomes a bad situation there. But
So that's the only land connection to the
yeah.
peninsula.
well, one of the only, basically. I'm not going to say only for sure because I don't really know
Right.
much about the land, but arguably one of the biggest bridges there. But we were going over convection around the storm as it approaches Cuba, 'cause we saw looked like a little bit of re-intensification on the radar. As we go through the images, it tries to build back and fades a little bit. But right in the last couple of frames, again, it looks like it's really bumping up its convection, specifically near the center in the last 2 or 3. Like
Yeah.
that.
I don't really think that the Cuban landfall is really going to slow it down, more or less. Primarily
No.
because the
Slow it
terrain
down
of
in
Peru.
terms of wind speed or actual movement?
in terms of strength, rather.
Yeah, I would say both.
It's just. It looks like it's since no, you know, Cuba has mountains. I know that for a fact. The mountains on
But it's
Cuba are
clipping the eastern tip, isn't it?
It's
it was
barely clipping the eastern tip.
shifted a bit further to the west of where the system is, and more or less, it's not as having as bad as an effect as probably if this storm hit like what Dominican Republic, because there are a lot of mountains over there that could just shred this system.
Right.
Have you ever seen storms pass through there? They just got shredded. I'm surprised that this system is still in a condition it's in after going through that channel
It's got to
between
be
Cuba
those
and
sea
Haiti.
surface temperatures, eh?
They're
That's
pretty warm, to say the least.
30, 31. Yeah, that's what's telling me the system has got plenty of steam and it's fighting it. That's for sure. Definitely fighting
It's
it.
not just that. It's also that this like warm water that's over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is usually borderline for sustaining tropical cyclones, that extends
Also-
deep below the surface with
Real
in this
deep,
particular
yeah.
area of the Caribbean as well.
This year has
While
had
talking about the mountains,
years
Yeah.
upon years of
been pretty
baking.
crazy. Yeah, it does seem like I know if it's managed to track further west and get west of Jamaica, it would have blown up basically, as the water specifically in the circling
Hank, is
region. Welcome back.
Yeah, that's me.
But this region specifically that I was circling, water, like the warm water there, extends like 200 meters below the surface. So
It's got plenty of gas here per
Yeah.
se.
for where it is right now, it's close to like 80 to 100 meters below water, but that's still way more than enough to work with.
Yeah, it is. And also, the same time when looking at it on the silent imagery, it looks like it's still popping 70 maybe in the cloud top department. So it's definitely still producing those stronger cloud tops, even though those cloud
Yeah,
tops aren't
I can
particularly wrapped around the eye.
check that right now.
I mean, if I did a
Here we go.
sat ops in this thing, in my best opinion, if I could make a guess on how this thing looks based off satellite picture, I'd say it's it's still a Cat 4, but barely a Cat 4.
Here's the cloud
Yeah,
tops.
so
You want
you're
to
in
go over
agreement.
that?
And the air pressure 949, you think that's category 4 pressure?
That's like a category 3 pressure usually, but this system's unusual size in terms of smallness really does scale the pressures a little
Interesting.
bit.
Well, Sandy making landfall on that very coastline, wasn't it 954 and 115 miles an hour? It was much bigger.
Yeah, but it was
Yep.
huge at this point.
also-
not as big as it's gonna become
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
couple of days, but
And
it was
it's not
was
as if
big
Matthew's going to do that. It will expand, probably, most likely.
Yep.
But
Its
a little
energy,
bit.
you can already tell, it's starting to disperse a bit. I noticed you were talking about the cooler cloud tops. I actually pulled that up for everyone. It's actually the colder ones are specifically starting to try to wrap around the eye again. I'm not the best with the scaling, so Hank, do you want to go over the temperatures?
I don't have any.
I have it up on screen share right now.
You have it on screen share. Okay. So I believe the so the whites indicate at least negative 60 degrees, and the grays indicate at least the grays within the whites indicate at least negative 70 degrees. This is all in Celsius, by the way. So for so about negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. For you Americans. So that's pretty darn cold. Yes, but how cold? But it doesn't. But cold. Gosh, I cannot speak this evening. The height of the clouds is determined by how cold the tops are. So the clouds. So the colder the cloud tops, the higher the storms. The higher the storm's height. Hence, the stronger the storm. Or the
As a
stronger.
general
If I'm
rule.
not, if I'm not mistaken, like right before it made landfall in Haiti, I know the highest cloud tops were actually pushing against the bottom of the stratosphere. If I'm not mistaken,
Which storm?
this one, right before landfall in Haiti, the clouds are actually pushing up against the bottom of the stratosphere.
So
Totally.
Like what, Brett?
So the clouds are pretty much almost hitting the tropopause, it seems. Well, that wouldn't be too much of a big surprise, but then again, at its latitude of around, I think it's around 20 north now, I'm assuming.
Yes,
the
it's just
tropopause
reached 20 north.
The tropopause at 20 north is a bit more shallow than the tropopause at 10 degrees north, so it does make sense for the system to have its cloud tops in the negative 70 range, just barely touching the tropopause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alright. So I'm going to start
And
screen share,
also, for all you... Sorry, go ahead, let me finish.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I was going to stop screen share to see if there's any new questions in the chat. You can go ahead for now.
One thing I'm going to say here is, if for all you people watching at home, the tropopause is the boundary that separates the troposphere, where the majority of our weather happens, and the stratosphere, the layer that happens to be above it. If you've ever taken a look at the huge slice of the atmosphere, you have where we live, the troposphere, where most of our weather goes on, and then we have above it, the stratosphere, you have your ozone layer, obviously there. And then above the stratosphere, you have your mesosphere, where I think I should probably stop explaining things.
We need someone to be able to explain things around here.
Yeah, well,
okay. And then you have, and then you have your, hang on a second. I'm having issues at Join HQ.
Oh, yeah?
Don't worry. I know Stefan asked in the chat to see if there was an update on the recon flights, and do you want to pull it up, Hank, or should I do it? 'Cause I already have the page, so I guess I'll do it.
You may as well.
Yeah, I'm on it right now. So
Yeah, there is an update on recon. They actually dropped another drop zone.
Okay.
Right a bit north. It was at 950.
Yeah, 950.
It looks like right now they're done crossing the I-4 now. It's important to mention for now. I know the scale's down here, so that's just to show exactly, how strong it is. So anything from dark green on is tropical storm force, dark red on is hurricane force. It seems like right now they're going around trying to find the hurricane force wind radius, I would assume, more than anything else. And they're probably going to circle back around and cut through the eye a couple more times just to find out, although... it might be a bit more difficult for them because they can't cross over Cuban territory in particular. So I mean, it's a bit more sketchy It's a bit more sketchy to get data right now, in particular, just because it's actually starting to cross over Cuba right now. But
maybe they'll time it so that the center of the storm reaches the other side. I don't know. Might take too long.
That's probably what they're gonna do. I would assume, if they're following my mouse, that they go around like this and try to they probably missed the eye here just because of the speed of the storm, but they probably spend this time to find out this radius in particular and then come back and try to intercept the eye as it moves off of Cuba, if I'm not necessarily mistaken. But that's the latest recon in particular. There's even where they are, they're still at 52 knots, peak 10-second winds. That's up here, which is pretty far out actually from where the eye is. So,
John,
if I'm not mistaken, and I go to the National Hurricane Center and look at their
we'll get
map.
back to you, John. Go right ahead.
Here is a current graph of the wind speed and pressure that the flight has recorded over the last per se 2 hours.
Oh, you're showing it on webcam.
Yes, I am, because that's the best I can do right now. The top of this graph correlates with about 135 knot. Not perfect because the graph scale is pretty hard to tell here. I'm thinking that flight level wind of 135 knot does correlate with the ground level wind of 120 knot. Or 125 knot, somewhere in there.
40 miles an hour, which is what it is right now.
140, 145, somewhere in that ballpark is where it correlates.
Yep.
Well, it's been the whole time, isn't it?
It's not that strength where you can say your flight level winds are just as strong as your ground level winds. It's not at that strength yet. That usually is a system over 140 knots. Regardless, before I was really interrupted by my dog, that's why I had to mute myself real quick. I was going to continue explaining the layers of the atmosphere.
Ah, I see.
You have your mesosphere where essentially your meteors heat up, and then above the mesosphere you have your thermosphere. where you have huge temperature differentials. I mean, you go from like negative 100 something to like 3600. It's really huge shift in temperature.
Yeah.
Again, the reason why you don't see your thunderstorm cloud tops really poking into the stratosphere, more or less, is because how the stratosphere is structured in terms of how your temperature changes with height. In the troposphere, you already probably know that your temperature cools as you go higher in altitude. But once you cross into the stratosphere, that kind of flips. Your temperature. This is kind of weird how I'm going to say it. If you guys don't really understand it, it's okay. Bear with me. The temperatures in the stratosphere, as you head higher in altitude in the stratosphere, actually increase. This causes convection in the troposphere to just really stop at the 12-foot pause. Because frankly, when you have your cool air, when you have it warming with height, that really just disrupts convection patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you don't have thunderstorms popping into the stratosphere too much, because the convection patterns just can't sustain itself in the lower levels of the stratosphere.
Okay.
When you're talking about weather, primarily you only worry about the troposphere and the stratosphere, more or less.
I also noticed that the actual wind radius of Matthew Hurricane and Tropical Storm Force is still expanding as its land interaction continues for now, and that the southernmost isle of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos is actually experiencing tropical storm force winds right now as we speak. They have entered that specific time period for them. I also noticed daylight has come upon Shaba, and it looks very, very bad on satellite.
You're right.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a given.
Yeah, it's not really pleasant for the viewer's eyes. Maybe they want to cover that up a little bit. Let me see if there's any more questions. I guess, I don't know if AJ's happy about this, but her school's canceled Thursday and Friday. I also, this compliments to us. I saw a comment earlier saying all these weather nerds are so hot, I wonder if they're single.
Oh, joy. You have to read that one out.
Just don't read those out loud. Just move on.
I know, yeah. Well, hey. It's up to you guys if you want to pursue that endeavor. Anyway, the time is 38 minutes past midnight UTC, and getting towards nothing much really as we get towards the end of this hour, just looking at recon and latest frames as the storm makes landfall.
Same stuff.
Cuba.
I'm going to have to leave real soon since I got to get back to my meteorology work, which I got to finish because today's like the last day to get that stuff done.
Okay.
Alright.
Solution much?
I also noticed a question from Lord Potato asking, can Nicole impact Matthew?
It'll be the other way around.
Yeah, it really depends on more movement, but Nicole, even though, tropical cyclones, when they, grow, they start producing their own wind shear outflow to impact other things, near them so that they won't harm themselves. That's not really going to work with Nicole because Matthew's so much more powerful. It's really the other way around. Nicole's definitely going to get crushed by Matthew, to say the least. You can already see, if we were to even look at Nicole on satellite, it's completely sheared to the east side because of winds coming out of Matthew, if it's clockwise
the
rotation.
Upper levels.
Yeah, exactly. Although I did notice that with Nicole, it's actually trying to wrap around its low-level circulation a bit.
I gotta say that Nicole is looking a bit more defined in these latest frames.
Definitely.
Could we possibly be looking at a 60-mile-an-hour TS? Possibly. Nothing's off the table.
Yeah, at least we could say with confidence it isn't a cloud anymore.
It's not a cloud. No. Hardly a cloud.
I know that was the argument last night, though.
Yeah, it was the argument last night. However, Nicole's LLC is now completely closed, which not completely closed, completely overshadowed by convection. Well, if it wasn't closed, it would.
Did you call it Hurricane Nicole?
Sorry, tropical storm. I'm
I don't know if you
tired.
did or not.
Okay.
I don't know. It might have been my ears.
Yeah, it might have been years.
It might have been.
I said if it didn't have a closed circulation, it wouldn't be a tropical storm. Regardless, what I meant to say is that the CDO has tracked over the sonar circulation, which means that this system is getting its act together per se, but it's really living on borrowed time as shear is expected to be on the increase, not only from the nearby Matthew's outflow, but I think there's a trough probably still sitting there that's going to probably impart tons of shear in that as well. So it's really it's on borrowed time right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 60 miles an hour, but we gotta wait till the 11 o'clock.
Its time's kind of dying out, and also it's around lots and lots of dry air.
Oh yes, dry air is kind of an issue with the system, and I wouldn't be surprised if some got ingested into the mid levels. So I'm gonna take a look at. Unfortunately, I can't show you guys imagery since my computer I'm using right now does not have screen share options. But yeah, just get a water vapor up and I can explain it. More or less, at the mid levels, it seems that Nicole is fighting some dry air, but at the same time, I don't see any of it being ingested into the system at this time.
Yeah,
so
I can screen share that quickly. So
I do that. Looking at the just looking at the water vapor. Thank you. I can definitely see that there's plenty of moisture associated with the system, which means that it is fighting off that dry air. There's definitely a lot of dry air around it, but there's not dry air entering into the system. There might be a little dry pocket trying to form, and that could possibly cause probably some entrainment of the dry air into the system.
I mean, as long as there's not really yellow coming into it or like a grayish yellow, it's still trying to keep itself together and not let that dry air get caught up into it.
I'm just going to take a minute out here in the background.
Mm-hmm. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, its peak for sure. Its time is definitely out because these are the very outer bands of Matthew, and I know, although despite the fact it's trying to start wrapping itself around, I think its peak was like a few frames before the last. It's starting to look like the convection that's trying to wrap around is decreasing in strength, and it's probably going to start getting blown off before too long.
Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole. You can see the last couple of frames in particular.
Yeah. It's on borrowed time right now.
Yeah. Especially because it's moving in a bad direction for itself as well. I'll stop screen sharing for now just to see if there's more questions coming up.
The cone has this thing thrown out to sea, so shouldn't be too worried about Nicole, but it is definitely something to look at. I mean, it's deal with that later.
Yeah.
I
know.
Sorry, I got texted. I said I'll deal with that later.
That's fine. I know there was some questions being asked about South Carolina, and I know all the U.S. impacts are definitely being part of this storm in particular. Really, it's too far to tell with South Carolina. Although I do praise the ahead of time preparation that they're doing. Ordering an evacuation of over 1 million people, in my opinion, was a bit premature. But
premature is an understatement, but I mean, this is like 3-4 days out. I mean, I would wait 48 hours to do that kind of stuff.
At least,
but,
let's just say at least, really, because they still would have had another day after that. But really, anything out of 2 days, and I'll try to pull up that track quickly through screen share, although I don't know if it'll shift to it.
I'm kind of curious if Matthew will absorb Nicole.
Yeah, I'm back now. I can operate that.
Okay, I was just going to show the quick 3-day track. It will be interesting to see if Matthew absorbs Nicole. Do you really think that will happen?
Not entirely.
It really depends on whether or not Matthew stays a little bit east of forecast and Nicole moves west, but it doesn't really seem like it. I'm pretty sure you have the 3-day track up, right?
Yeah, ooh.
Yeah,
it's almost paralleling the Florida coast.
This is the current 3-day track. This is the furthest where we can say with any certainty at all that this is where it's going to go. Certainty cuts off right here once it hits the northern Bahamas because you got the model spread by 3 days out from here, all the way out this way. So it's models are everywhere with this thing, but at least we can say with certainty it's gonna move through the Bahamas. The question still is how far east will it move in the Bahamas as well, though. But this is, if you were to get like a picture anywhere in this cone is where the storm can move. Will it make landfall in Florida? It's seeming less likely right now, at least. But things can change. And just because the eye is in one spot, even if that's offshore, doesn't mean impacts won't be felt at all. I know they're starting to put watches in the mornings in effect. That's what these colors represent. Pink is hurricane watches, yellow is tropical storm watches. All is deep red's hurricane warnings, and blue's tropical storm warnings. All down here, this will probably be lifted pretty soon. But regardless of what happens, anyone along the southeast part of the United States, Bahamas, don't go to the beach because regardless of where this ends up, there's going to be a lot of rip currents and stronger tides in general. Yeah, that's something to really keep in mind. And when we're asking about, how is it going to affect South Carolina and stuff, it's still a bit too far out to tell. Maybe tomorrow afternoon, that's when we can really start talking about that in particular.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Radar actually looks like more and more of Matthew's eyes really starting to move over Haiti as well in the radar footage there.
Cuba, rather.
Yep. Keep messing up with that. Probably another hour and a half, 2 hours, and it'll be out over the open again.
Could be.
Moved over Haiti.
Yeah.
Moved over Haiti this morning, bud.
Yeah, I know. That's just me. That was just mouth typo.
Is this the one? Is this one of the Bahama radars? I'm kind of a bit confused. What's going on here myself?
That's the Guantanamo Bay radar. I'm assuming. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like that's from the Guantanamo area, not the Bahamas. Plus, you can see the eye coming ashore just a little bit northeast, and I think we talked about Guantanamo Bay being the eye of the storm being 55 miles away from it, that way in particular, so I would assume that's it. Someone asked where the eye is. On the radar, this circle in the middle, you can see it to start moving over land. That's where, right in between where the strongest convection is, that's where the eye is. It's just starting to move over Haiti right now. And
yeah, I probably can't stay for much longer because my work is just way too much in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I just came to pop in.
Yeah, that's not something to worry about. Actually, I noticed in the latest couple of frames of the visible radar, even though it's nighttime, it looks like, although in the earlier frames the storm is moving more of a north-northeast track, it's actually trying to hook a little bit further west, so maybe this is the time of the turn they were talking about. But one thing that sticks in my mind is particular that same kind of hook also happened when the storm went over Haiti, and as soon as it went back over water, it kept going north-northeast.
Marcelo's joined us.
Hey, what's up, Marcelo?
Hello.
Hello.
I think Matthew has already caused a lot of damage in Haiti, and I think Matthew is going to do the same, but in Cuba.
Were you expecting it to go so far east, Marcel?
I will look.
Who's fidgeting about?
Sorry, I should mute myself. One of those days I keep forgetting things.
Yes.
I know.
They're becoming more frequent at Force 13 US HQ.
Yes.
Yeah. I know right now the confirmed deaths with Matthew are 8, and only 2 of them in Haiti. I know for sure the death toll is far, far more than 2 in Haiti, unfortunately. We're not really going to get strong numbers until at least a few more days from now, but I will not be surprised at all if the death toll is at least over 1,000, unfortunately.
I really gotta run now, so I wish everyone who's watching the stream a good evening. I may be back, I don't know. I'll see what time I finish my work, and I'll check in and see if the stream's still running, and I might pop back in.
Alright.
All right,
Have a
so-
good
Yeah,
night.
I just want to let everyone know our plans for tonight. We're going to be running with the commentary until midnight Eastern time, and then we're going to be going off the air for some amount of time, and then
A long
We all need a
break.
rest.
I say off the air as to the point where we will not be talking because everyone's going off doing their own thing.
Oh, the stream will still
Going
be
to
up,
bed,
like the
mainly.
radar will be
Yeah,
there.
as requested last night, the stream will be staying up again tonight, and you can type in your comments on the stream, and perhaps some of us will be on there as well. So
Have a good evening, folks.
that'll be going on.
yeah.
That's a good 4 hours, 3 hours away yet. So
Yeah, I know. Well, right now the stream's been on continuously for like 29 hours now.
Oh my
Dear
goodness.
me.
yes,
Yeah.
it is
Oh
29.
dear. What
But,
is
you know,
Oh, dear.
storm?
It'll,
Even though,
Have a
you know,
great night wherever you are, or a great day,
Yep.
or
yeah, and
evening,
John,
or
you've got a
morning, or
new
whatever.
admirer as well in the chat room too. So enjoy
I
it.
saw-
Now,
Okay.
moving on.
Alrighty then.
Saw
On the YouTube
questions
chat or on
from
the Skype chat?
The Colombian asking
on
if
the, never mind. The
Oh,
YouTube
you-
chat.
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I saw the Colombians asking if anyone can see if there's any storm forming that will be named Otto, and in the next few days, and which way it's going. Right now, it could be that tropical wave that's
Yeah,
going
that
through the
wave that's been designated. We've not mentioned it for a while. Do you want to show us on the satellite imagery
Yes,
the wide shot?
I will give a quick check on that.
Yeah, we'll have to be quick because
Just-
we're gonna cut away in a few minutes.
Yep. Just go back, and I'll click down on it. You can. Oh. Okay, let's load up the image. This is the larger broad area. That's. I'm pretty sure it's not designated 99L yet, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it'll be
but-
soon
Not
enough.
yet. Not yet.
Probably, but even though it says 10% in the next
Looks good for
48
10%.
hours. Yeah, it says 10% and then 20 in the next 48. Keep in mind, was it like less than 36 hours ago, what is now Nicole was at 10% or 20%. So even though it's saying this now, you don't really know for sure. I have noticed if I actually go back and check on the current storms, I'm pretty sure it's there. If I just go down 99A, no, that's India. My bad. If I scroll up, no, it's actually not even here, surprisingly. But I know when I was checking out, I saw water vapor earlier that it was the top third of it basically is getting sheared off, basically, but the rest of it, especially near the center, looks to be okay. But that's really it regarding the system. If you're around here, keep an eye on it, but it's not going to be very much of a spectacle in particular or anything that is really going to be mentioned too much, at least for the next few days. If
I
it
think the
really gets
name
its act
is
together.
Vorain, they've got a question whether
Yep.
Matthew will hit Nova Scotia.
Definitely, I mean, in regards to track, here's the 5-day track regarding that. If this track were to be exactly correct and you extrapolate, yes, it's still far too early to tell, though, especially with the model spread. But the one thing I will say is that throughout the history of the storm, especially for the past 3 to 4 days, there has been a big consistency that this storm will definitely impact the Canadian maritime area, even if it doesn't really impact the U.S., New England, or Mid-Atlantic a lot. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on in the Maritimes, like Nova Scotia. Is it set in stone? Most definitely not.
Yeah, but there it is, something to watch, and that's what we will continue to do over these hours. Obviously, things go by really quickly in the chat on YouTube. So if you do have any questions and we don't get to it, apologies.
Oh
though,
my God!
Yes.
Someone just asked if the storm will hit Greenland, and quote,
Yeah,
"I'm
well-
scared."
But
Now
no.
they're being silly.
Yeah.
Oh. Why would they ask that?
That's a good question.
Oh man.
Wish I knew. Alright, so we're taking a break for the end of the hour right now?
Yeah, it's not likely to go to Greenland, just in case you really, really, really wanted to know.
Very
back-
unlikely.
Yeah, even Lee says it's unlikely. Back in 5 minutes. Hey, Lee, will it be coming to the UK? We need to know.
Well, I'll explain that now before you go for a break.
Alright, well,
I'll check the
mention it after the break,
Yeah.
Lee, and
Dude,
we'll
I'll mention
we've got
it
something to
after
talk
the break.
about.
I'll check the CMC. I'm pretty sure that'll blow it up into a monster
I'll tell
sized
you why
storm,
I'm
so.
saying
boy.
no. I'll tell you why I'm saying no after.
Yeah.
Alright, Lee, thanks. Back soon.